What is up, East of the Bend listeners? We are back at it 15 minutes later. Michele Tafoya has called us back. We're going to be giving her a call here in just a few minutes, just a minute or two. She's all ready to go. Appreciate you guys sticking with us. Well, that's never happened before. So, yeah. So we're going to
We should have just sat here in silence and just stared at each other and the camera.
Exactly. Yeah. Or Willie could take his pants off or something like that.
Pants off, dance off.
Pants off, dance off. Again, real quick, just for those of you out there who sound like we're out of breath because, yeah.
We just ran. Like we tore everything down and then hurried up.
We put the set back together. So we are the official podcast of the Notre Dame Fan Club of Columbus. Game day watch parties, 346 South High Street in Columbus at Dempsey's Food and Spirits. So go out and check out Dempsey's. Check out our guy, Mr. Kent Price, 740-973-0817 for any DJ needs you might have. So without further ado, two-time Emmy winner, sports Emmy winner, 7 times nominated. Little drum roll going. Willie's excited now. I'd say the nervousness is gone.
Yep.
Michele Tafoya, former ESPN Sideline Reporter, March Madness, first woman to call a March Madness game. Just incredible at the top level of her craft. Current NBC Sunday Night Football Sideline Reporter. Football, that too. And, before we get kicking here, one more thing. I do want to thank KQRS 92.5 in Minneapolis and Vahid Sedrazadeh for being just incredible resources and 92.5 forwarding her information. Sounds like we're moving quick because, well, we are. So we're trying to we'll get her back on the line. And let's do this thing. The quickest intro.
Hi.
Hey, Michele. Thank you so much for coming back on with us.
Oh, gosh. No problem. I'm so sorry.
Don't be sorry.
Don't worry about it.
No, don't worry about it. I mean, we did have to tear down the set and put it all back together in record time. It was good practice, though.
Oh, my gosh, guys.
No, don't be sorry at all. We appreciate you coming on. We promise we also won't complain about the weather down here because we know you live in Minnesota, and we may ask how to survive negative 30 and 60 degree weather. But
I'll try to explain.
So we tried to set the stage for you a little bit, Michele. You are at the top level of your craft. Truly amazing what you've accomplished in sports media. Multiple Super Bowls, over 200 NFL games. We talked a little bit earlier before we called you. First woman to call a March Madness game. Very cool. You've done Selection Sunday. You've done the Summer Olympics. I want to know when the book comes out, honestly. Keep me. That can be what you do when you write the book. At least shoot me a copy. That can be the payment for being late. Let's do that.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
So just tell us, how did you get involved in sports media?
It was a long shot, really. I was getting my master's in business at the University of Southern California and thought that I was going to go into the business world, and I just couldn't see it. It just wasn't computing for me. And at the same time, I'd always been an enormous sports fan. And about that time, I started to see people like Robin Roberts and Leslie Visser and emerge as these women doing sports. And I watched and I said, I think I can do that. So I get out of grad school and I made a demo tape and I just sent it everywhere I could possibly send it, and wound up getting a nibble in Charlotte, North Carolina, and got hired there to do sports talk radio. And that was sort of the beginning of everything.
So you talk about Leslie Visser and Robin Roberts. Did you have a mentor at any point, or someone outside of those two that might have inspired you for this?
Well, I remember the first time I went to someone, this is kind of amazing because all I remember is that his name was George and that he was in an office near mine when I was working in production before I started this adventure. And I told him, I said, I really think I want to be in front of the camera. And he said, well, you've just got to get a job. You just got to go somewhere and get a job. You just got to start. So that little piece of advice he just nudged me to go, okay, that's what I have to do. He's right. I just got to go get a job. But as far as mentors, I think I had a champion in Fred Godelli, who's now obviously the producer of Sunday Night Football, and he did Monday Night before that. And he really, he just kind of catapulted my career to a different level than it had been. And Al Michaels was behind that as well. I met Al working on the NBA. on ABC, and he mentioned my name to Fred Godelli when they were in a spot on Monday Night Football when they were transitioning sideline reporters. And Fred called me up and we chatted and I met him and he hired me. And so, it's moments like that. There have been so many lucky strokes along the way that have really, really made the difference in my career.
Now, Michele, you're still involved in a lot of various other forms of media. We talked about before we called you. You're still on the radio and KQRS, and we thank them big time because they forwarded you our information and to get you on the show. I'm really appreciative to them. But what kept you doing radio? Was that one of your first loves in sports media, or just really fun to do?
It is really fun to do. I mean, you guys, you're doing a form of it in a way. And in a podcast is probably even more liberating. But what I learned about radio, because that's where I started, and I learned that when you can do sort of that free-flowing conversation, a lot more of your thoughts can come out. You can discuss a lot more stuff. You can be a little more yourself. And I enjoy that freedom on the radio. And so KQ has been a lot of fun. I've done radio almost nonstop since I began back in 1993, and I'm really grateful because I have a blast. I love to be, I love to talk, and so on the radio you get that opportunity.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. It is nice not having an agenda where you can just bring up a topic and then you can just talk and talk and talk, and let it go to other things.
Exactly. It's just a kind of a free flow conversation. And, on the KQ morning show, people tell us that it just sounds like a bunch of friends sitting in a living room talking. And that's what we want it to be.
Yeah. That's how we got on a stretch ourselves of several guests in a row. And don't get me wrong, we love having our guests on, and we've been very fortunate to have the guests we have. But then we got to a point where, like, man, it's almost a little too formal sometimes.
Yep.
You got to get that structure back and things like that. And it's fun to just let that kind of free flow, as you say, happen.
No question.
Michele, you've been involved in so many various sports and different media outlets. You've almost worked for all the big networks. Along the way, what kind of challenges did you face, or any pitfalls along the way did you come across?
Oh, so many. It's hard it would take days to discuss, but you learn along the way by making mistakes, and that's how we learn in life. Period. You fall down so you can learn how to get up. You do something terrible on the air so you can figure out how to do it right the next time. So I think a lot of it was, I got into television probably before I was really ready. And my first job was on the network level, of television. So they had great confidence in me, but I was, I think, a little stunned that I was on network television for my first TV job. And you think you know how to do certain things and you find out that you don't. And I'd go the other direction too. You trust people who have been in the industry a long time, sometimes to your detriment. Sometimes they want to make you do stuff or say stuff or be a way that you don't feel comfortable being, but you trust them because they're the experts. They've been there the longest when your gut is telling you something otherwise. So it's a lot of learning, and you've got to have those experiences, positive and negative, to get any good at this at all. And unfortunately, that's just how life is. And some of those mistakes that I made early on, I thought it was the end of the world. And, but then I kept telling myself I wasn't going to give up. I wasn't going to give up. And I can still make a mistake on the air, but I know how to handle it much, much better. As far as, I know a lot of people ask, oh, but what about the challenge of being a woman in a male-dominated field? That was a challenge because there's no question that people just kind of initially go, oh, what do you know about sports? I don't think that exists as much anymore, but it certainly did when I began in the industry. And I think I just told myself from day one, don't think of yourself as a female sports journalist. Think of yourself as a sports journalist, and just go do your job. And that helped me a lot.
Yeah, that's one of the things. I watched one of your previous interviews, and that's always been a big stance of yours. Even said, you talk to somebody younger or whatever, you just, don't put yourself in that box of being a female sports reporter. How have you won over your son yet? I heard the interview where your son apparently said you don't know anything about football.
When I won him over was when we were doing a fantasy football draft, and I knew a little something about a rookie in the league that he didn't know. And so I drafted that rookie who ended up just churning out tons of yards and scores. And the next thing I know, my son was trying to trade with me. Please, can I trade for him? Please. And I'm like, no way, kid. No, I knew this. You didn't. Tough beans. But yeah, I think finally he's getting a sense that mom kind of knows what she's doing.
You should have said, well, that's a terrible trade. Who would trade with somebody that doesn't know anything about football, right?
I wish I thought of that line then.
Yeah. So Michele, you were with ESPN for a while, and then you took the leap and you moved over to NBC with the Sunday Night Football. What was that like? What was your experience like? Did you have a moment where like, man, I really don't want to leave ESPN, or was it just kind of like, hey, I'm going to do this?
Well, it was really, here's how it went. I was on Monday Night Football with John Madden and Al Michaels for 2 seasons. The final 2 seasons that Monday Night Football was on ABC. Of course, now it's on ESPN. And I loved Al and John so much, and our crew, Fred Godelli, Drew Esikoff, just a bunch of people that it was making this show. It was so fun, and we were all really proud of the work that we did. Well, most people remember Monday Night Football moved on to ESPN. Now it's on cable. And at the same time that NBC got back into the NFL by starting this Sunday Night Football telecast. And NBC, when they did that, well, they hired Al Michaels, and they hired John Madden, and they hired Fred Godelli and Drew Esikoff, and basically our entire crew. But I had already signed on to stay at ESPN and do Monday Night Football for ESPN. So there I am. My whole crew leaves. They go to NBC, and I'm still at ESPN, and I'm still doing Monday Night Football. And after a period of time, they worked really hard to try to come get me so I could rejoin them. And so I think that was about 4 years. I spent 5 years on ESPN's Monday Night Football, and then made the transition over to NBC. And I was utterly thrilled to be back with my crew. And now, by then, it was Chris Collinsworth replacing John Madden. But it was like kind of like coming home. It was fantastic, and I've never been happier working anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, you've really joined what we always call in my house. It's an event. What NBC does for Sunday Night Football, in my opinion, I mean, it's an event. You have Carrie Underwood singing. Even my son at 14 months old, we already got him hip to. We have to watch Carrie sing, and we have to watch Michelle's opening before we do anything else. It doesn't matter if it's 2 teams we hate. We're gonna sit here. We got to watch Carrie, and we got to see Michelle.
You're raising him right. You're raising him right.
But, yeah, I mean, they've really just turned it into an event, and the numbers show, it's the highest-rated TV show on television right now. So, very awesome.
Yeah, it's been quite a ride. 8 straight seasons as the #1 show in primetime is a record in American television, and that is almost hard to believe.
Mm-hmm. And you yourself, you've won 2 sports Emmys and been nominated, 7 times. I would hate to not touch on this, but just what does that mean to you to, as a female and just, not necessarily just as a female in sports media, but just in general, you've won 2 Emmys and you're up for one every year. What does that mean to you?
Well, it's a weird thing because I try really hard not to let external things like that define who I am. And, but at the same time, I'm really proud of them. I really feel humbled by them. I know that, I do a job, but I have a lot of great support from the entire crew. And so I don't ever feel like I've won those alone. And I don't know. It's just kind of a humbling thing. But I am a wannabe stoic. I'm a practicing stoic, and that it means that the stuff that happens every day outside of your control is just that. It's outside of your control, and the only thing you do control is how you react to it. So my reaction is that I'm very grateful, and it of course it feels really good to win an Emmy. But it's not going to define who I am or how I do my job. I think you can get into real trouble if you start trying to win Emmys, or you start trying to live up to it and panicking if you feel like you're not. So it's I know that sounds kind of goofy, but it's the way I view it. But I am very proud and very humbled.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I don't think it's that off base, because I mean, you think about in the sports world, when you have a player who wins and he tries to do it all himself, or she tries to do it all themselves, the team then starts to suffer. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
or kind of just falling in love with your own success.
yeah,
That's when you
I mean, you're kind of seeing it, unfortunately, with the Pittsburgh Steelers right now, with Antonio Brown. I think he's a phenomenal player and he works harder than anybody, but there comes a point when you got to step back and not necessarily put yourself ahead of the team.
And I think that's why you see such unprecedented success by the New England Patriots,
Please don't
because
say
they,
that.
you are great minds. They've mastered that.
Yeah.
They've mastered the ability to say, okay, new season, we're moving on now, and let's see what we can do again, and have everyone be selfless and do their jobs. I think we're seeing that too, really emerging in Kansas City. I think we're seeing it start to happen in San Diego, and it's going to be fun seeing how these things start emerging. The Patriots, they can't do it forever. I mean, maybe they can. I don't know. They've won 6 World Championships, but it's other teams are and I think the Saints, you got to put them in that category too, with Drew Brees and Sean Payton, just understanding that every year is new. You can't hang your hat on your success, and and everyone has to sacrifice to be part of what is a team. And to me, football is the greatest team sport there is.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I know from my perspective, being a fan, when I see guys being selfless, like the Patriots, and they just come in and they buy into the whole team mentality, and they just win and win and win, and then you see other teams where somebody is trying to say, okay, I'm better than the team, whatever. How do you think most of the sports world enjoys that better with what the Patriots do, where they look at it and they say, hey, the team wants to win, not just this one individual?
Yeah, but here's the quandary with the Patriots, because even though it is the whole team that wants to win, we all know they're a completely different team when Tom Brady isn't playing, and he's proven that, and I think that he makes everyone better. So, but I do think, a lot of people were saying they're tired of seeing the Patriots in the Super Bowl, and I get that. I get that. But at the same time, we're witnessing something really, really cool, and so I think people appreciate how you can sustain that kind of excellence and look there for lessons. By the way, the reason I came about finding stoicism which it's been there all along, I just hadn't been introduced to it before, but was through someone connected with the Patriots. That book by Ryan Holiday, The Obstacle is the Way, had circulated through their locker room prior to one of their Super Bowl seasons, and it really just talks about controlling one thing and one thing only, and that's your mind. You can break your leg. That's beyond your control. Now you have to decide, how am I going to respond to that? You can throw an interception. Okay, that's partly your control, but it has to do with the people on the other end of that reception, the receiver and the defensive back. All right, now how do I respond to it? So it's really all about just your mind, and your mind reacting to things in a very productive, calm, just manner, in a way that is right for your situation. And I think you see that with a lot of the great players in this league.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it comes down to preparation as well. And one of the things you've always discussed in the past, that anytime I've seen you on for interviews, is you talk about your preparation. And tell us a little bit about what your preparation's like through the football season that's made you so successful. And kind of second part of the question is, I know how important that opening report is to you. Just kind of elaborate on that opening report.
Well, I'll start there. It is important because it's there are only a handful of times you stand in front of that camera during one of these games and deliver something. And usually we've saved something, whether it's a great nugget or a kind of a setup of the game that's beyond what Al and Chris are doing, whether it revolves around one player or a coach or a relationship between a player and a coach or two coaches, whatever it is. We think it's an important storyline. And so we try to build it and write it. And I write these. No one else writes them. I write them. And because they got to sound like they come from me. So, but, I let Fred and Michelle Froman, who's the sideline producer, look at them and give me feedback. And then we shape this thing. It's important, and it's important to do it really well so that your first thing out of the gate on a telecast is delivered really well. And then you can it sets you up to have a good game. It sets you up to just feel like you're okay, we've done it. We're rolling now. Let's move on. As far as preparation, it's just nonstop. It starts Monday morning on the plane ride home from wherever we're leaving. And it's research. It's a lot of it's just some really tedious notes that I compile to help me prepare for that week. One thing about our show is we try to be prepared for every potential scenario. There are some you can't prepare for, obviously. Gary Kubiak collapsing on the field during a Houston game was one we couldn't prepare for, but we ended up responding appropriately. But the other stuff, the game, the halftime, whatever it is, you've just got to be prepared for every scenario. So we turn over a lot of stones during the week and dig. And I talk to multiple players on my own during the week to get these kind of storylines that I'm trying to flesh out. So it's a ton of work. And the funny thing is, you only see me or hear me a few times during the telecast. A lot of the work gets left on the cutting room floor, but it's got to be done.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a ton of people who they'll hear you on the radio or see you on the TV, and they're like, "Oh, you just talk about sports. It can't be that hard."
Yeah. Well, I learned. I think I told you in our email exchange we covered high school football for the first time this year, and I was responsible for the sideline reporting. And I looked at Will at halftime, and I was like, first game at halftime, I'm like, this is hard. This is a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, and that was just high school, but
it's harder than it looks.
Would you say that that's the toughest part of your job is doing all the research and all the tedious little things, or is there something else where you're like, man, this one aspect is just so hard, and I just kind of dread it?
Well, I dread being away from my family, and we're gone. I leave every Thursday night because we spend a lot of time on site. And so we're, gone all day Friday, gone all day Saturday, gone all day Sunday, come home Monday in time, usually for me to be able to pick them up from school. But my kids are 13 and 10. And from the time they were born, this is what I've been doing. And so I've missed a lot. And that is painful. It really is. I've missed tournaments. I've missed choir performances, you name it, whatever. I've missed stuff. And a lot of people do, and it's part of the job, and it's what you signed up for. So I don't complain about it, but it is painful personally for me. And the other part is just the elements and the physicality of the job. Just trying to keep your head together, your notes together, your awareness. And it could be pouring rain, or it could be windy as all get out, or it could be 6 below zero, and you're just trying to maintain focus while fighting this other adversary, which is the elements. And, it'd be one thing if I didn't have to go on camera, but it's another thing when it's raining and you just, all of a sudden you didn't have an umbrella or whatever, and you just, oh my God, I look like a drowned rat. Now I have to go on national television. So all those things, and it's a very physical job. You're running around a lot, which you probably found doing the sideline at the high school level. You're running around, you're following stuff, you're listening to the broadcast, you're listening to stuff on the field, and your mind is just zapped at the end.
Yeah, we ran into a lot of weather this past year, and I never really thought about that because I've played sports my whole life, and still to this day I continue. And I never really thought about the weather. Kind of was like, oh, whatever. And then it starts raining, and I'm like, man, I got to cover up this camera. How am I going to get to the shot? Yeah.
Right.
And then continued to rain for about 8 Fridays of 10. But, it's neither here nor there. Yeah, we especially rainy this year. I don't think, there wasn't a game one that we didn't look like a drowned rat.
Right.
But speaking of, you kind of mentioned not having the proper attire for being outside. My wife loves your hat game on TV, so you definitely picked the right hats for cold weather, if nothing else.
Oh, well, bless her heart, because I hate wearing them. I'm so self-conscious in hats, so it's always, I can't stand when I have to wear them, but I'd rather do that and then freeze to death, so it's got to be done.
There's that. Well, Michele, you are just, phenomenal at your craft, and, I'm sure, obviously it's taken time to build to where you are, but is there a certain moment in your career that you point to that you said, you know what, I've got this, or, I'm going to be doing this for a long time, where you kind of hit that confidence?
Wow. I don't know that there was a moment. I think it's because I still have insecurities all the time. And while I'm really confident in my role and confident in what I do, I can't really say that there was a moment. But I do think that Fred Godelli, our producer on Sunday night, making the effort to bring me over from ESPN to be part of his crew again was really affirming that, I had done things right when he and I were together on Monday Night Football, and he wanted that relationship to go on again. And, I think if he had had his preference, I would have gone with them to begin with, but it just wasn't to be. So I think that was just affirming, and it helped me realize that, because I consider him the best producer in live television sports, and to have someone like that say, we need you, is reaffirming.
So, Michele, you've covered over 200 NFL games. You've been in an NBA, multiple Olympics, excuse me, NCAA Final Fours. You were the first woman to call play-by-play for the NCAA tournament. Are there any games that really stand out, like one game, maybe two games, where you're like, man, this game was so great. I'm so happy I got to call it?
Well, I will tell you the Brett Favre game on Monday Night Football on ESPN when he hosted Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, and that was, from the moment I walked into the stadium, you could cut it with a knife. It was just, the excitement was absolutely palpable, and I got to do the post-game interview with Brett, which was great. And, it wasn't my first time interviewing Brett, of course, but it was a moment in his career that really was one of the moments that defined his career. And so that was great. And I was glad, and I was thrilled walking out of there. I will say, in Rio de Janeiro, the last Olympic Games, the Summer Olympic Games, covering Michael Phelps and his comeback, and the way that Team USA performed every single night at those Olympic Games, it was stunning. And I would walk out of that aquatic center every night going, I can't believe I get paid to do this. This has been unbelievable. So the Olympics are truly special, and the whole Michael Phelps situation, and everyone, Katie Ledecky, it was just swimmer after swimmer after swimmer. And one of the fun things about doing the Olympics is you kind of get to be a homer, because you're really doing the United States, you're doing the telecast for people back at home.
Yep.
And so it's that's what people are interested in, and it was just incredible to be a part of. So I remember thinking, it doesn't get a lot better than that.
No doubt. Michele, you've done so much at this point in your career, and you've made it this far and been so successful, and you just pointed out a few moments there that are just tremendous, and I could only hope to be a part of like a quarter of one of those moments. One of those moments.
It's always one of those where you're like, man, if I'm 10% as great as she is, I've done something right.
You guys.
But
you're laying it on thick
now. No, you're amazing at what you do, but the question is, though, have you set any other goals for yourself at this point in your career, or is there anything that you haven't done to this point in your career that you would want to do?
There are a lot of things that I would have liked to have done. I would have liked to have called play-by-play on an NBA game. I did a lot of college, men's college and women's college basketball, and the WNBA. I worked with Reggie Miller on that, so that was fun. But I did want to do an NBA game. There are certainly a lot of dreams that you have. Love to host an Olympic Games, but then you look at your circumstances and you go, well, I'm not going to beat out Bob Costas for that. So I understand that right away. It's important to sort of understand your limitations or the situation around you and not let it infuriate you or frustrate you, but just learn to work with what is available. So, and there, honestly, there are things I want to do as a mom. I want to, it becomes, your priorities really change once you get married or whatever and have kids. Whatever your situation is, family can become, so important. And I think one of the reasons it's important to me is because before it all came to me, this family, I felt like, yeah, I'm got a great job and it's really fun, but who am I sharing this with? I was living alone. I didn't, there was no family near me. And I just felt like I want to share this with someone. And so now I have this, incredible husband, my son, my daughter, and that stuff is really, really important to me. And it's, when you're working a lot, it's sort of hard to remember that and hard to balance, but it is, it's super important to me to be a good mom.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to take a moment and say thank you to you. I've got two daughters. One is 9 and the other is about to turn 11. And I know they see women like you on TV and being successful and doing things that you don't normally see. So thank you for that, because it helps me to raise my daughters to say, hey, look, you can do this. Like, there aren't limitations. So I just want to take a second and say thanks for
Well,
that.
you know what? You're so fortunate to have two little girls. And it's interesting. I remember Beth Mowens, who does some NFL play-by-play. She's really made some history. And she saw a dad down in the stands with his little daughter, and they were pointing up at her. And she was just flooded with emotion, thinking, he's telling her something about me. And it really moved her. And Leslie Visser laid so much of this groundwork, Hannah Storm, Robin Roberts. But I'm glad that there are role models for young girls. And what my true hope is that, this identity stuff just dissipates at some point. We're all people, and you can be any color and you can be any gender, and you can succeed at something because you want to do the job right, not because of the color of your skin or the religion that you practice, but just because you do the job well.
Yeah.
And I hope that we continue to try to buoy excellence above all other things, because that's what it should be about.
Yeah, I know, like, at my job, that's a big thing. I always ask people, can you do the job? I don't care where you're from. I don't care who you are, what race, what religion. Can you do the job?
Right.
Yeah, it's funny, you mentioned that, just because me and Will had a conversation at one point in time, and we're building East of the Bend Productions. Allison Hayes from ABC 57, somebody else I really look up to as a sideline reporter, and everything she does for the University of Notre Dame. And then we also are friends with Katie Myers, who's the social media director at Notre Dame, and we follow all of what they do. And it was kind of funny, we're in our 30s, at Will's 40, and we're like, hey, we look up to two girls women in sports. It's kind of different, but it's like we also had the discussion of who cares, they're phenomenal at what they do.
Yep.
And I mean, it's a great point. It just made me think about that conversation we had.
Well, it's funny because people ask me who, did I have role models or mentors? And but some people, feminists, aren't going to like the answer. I idolized Bob Costas. I thought his use of language was second to none. I loved watching Dan Patrick host SportsCenter. I loved his humor. So I learned from a lot of men too, and it's a guy who championed my career here in Fred Godelli. So I really would like people to just open their minds to the notion that it doesn't have to rely on, the other stuff. Just try hard, do your job, be good at what you do.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, Michele, we appreciate you coming on with us. I do have one more question for you. I'm going to flip it back, and I'm going to be selfish with this one a little bit. But do you have any advice for me going into my second season, or anybody as being young in the sports profession? I'm not young by any stretch. I'm 32, but in the sports profession, I am definitely a baby. Sports media. So, do you have any advice for me or anybody else kind of in my position?
Specifically sideline reporter role.
Yeah.
Because it is a specific role. I would say, prepare like crazy, listen to the announcers, figure out how you fit into the flow of the broadcast, and also less is more. You can tell a story with very few words and make an impact with very few words. It doesn't have to be, Edgar Allan Poe to make a point really well. So I think those three things, and just be tenacious. And if you notice something, don't assume that everybody else noticed it. Tell your producer or tell whoever it is that needs to hear, did you just see that? Because very often they won't, and you noticed it and you could have a scoop. So listen to your gut. And like I said, the most important thing is work your tail off.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that. That's one of the things I have struggled, with, and you do such a good job, obviously, of just keeping locked on that camera. I think that's probably my worst thing.
Yeah, I don't know how many times I'm like, look at the camera.
Yeah, look at the camera. Yeah, put.
You know what? Look through the lens. Like I remember a broadcaster saying, "Look down the throat of the camera," and I try to do that because there's the frame of the camera, there are people around, there is stuff that can distract you. If you look directly into that lens and beyond, and imagine that the person that you're trying to impress the most is either you or your producer, and don't worry about anyone else. Just try to block it out best you can, look down the throat of that camera, and stay committed to it.
Well, Michele, that's awesome. I've definitely carried that. I'll listen to that before every single one of them.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you coming on with us and taking the time out. I know you had some conflict with the first date we gave you, but you were at an event that sounded like it might have been a little more intense than the NFL itself, that being kids basketball. So.
Let me tell you, there's nothing that makes me more nervous than attending my kids' games, but. You guys, I so appreciate your flexibility, and it's been a pleasure to be on with you.
Now, I may bother you. I've guaranteed my wife this year we'd make a Sunday night game. If we may, we're going to get in a day early, so it may bother you. We'd love to meet you for even if it's just a minute. So.
Well, you let me know.
Okay, absolutely will. Well, you have a great evening, Michele, and we look forward to keeping in touch, okay?
Do that, please. It's been enjoyable, guys. Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Bye.
Man, I could just listen to her talk.
I know, right?
I'm just like, I don't want this to end.
You know how I feel about this one is about how when we got off the phone with Allison.
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Yeah. That's what I was thinking. I was like, man, her and Allison they talk so well.
Well, and they're passionate about what they do.
Yeah.
You can just tell.
And it's one of those things where you're like, in your head, you've got a timer going like, man, this can only go 20 minutes. I'm sure she's got more important things to do. But then you're also like, just keep talking, please.
Yeah, just keep talking. I mean, for me, if you listen to the 0.10 or 1.0 podcast from earlier when we were running around in circles, you would hear me say that this show's been about 2 years in the making. As somebody, when I first started doing this, I'll tell the story again just real quick before we bounce on you, because we actually have dinner reservations. Just two dudes going out on a Friday night with dinner reservations. Yeah, I never even thought I'd have guests on. I didn't even know if I'd have a co-host. In my own warped mind, you know how me and you are. I was like, I bet after 2 shows, I can do this. I'm going to be freaking Colin Cowherd. I don't need anybody. I got this. And then when, the first show got, a ton of listens, and, everybody, I could have gone on and just been dead air and been like, you got those proverbial friend boosts.
Yeah.
Everybody's going to tell you did good.
Yeah.
Even though, the first episode, nobody can hardly hear it because I had no understanding of, sound or anything else. But my point is when I started to think about guests that I would want to have on, I was like, she was one that just sprung out at me. Allison Hayes being another, and then I talked about Bill Simmons. DA would be incredible to get on.
Man, I would love to.
I don't know what we'd have to do. I don't know how those legal agreements work. Being on radio, what kind of appearances they could do. I honestly didn't think legally we'd be able to speak to Michele.
Man, I'm telling you what. When you text me and you were like, "Guess what?" and I'm like, "Oh, what? What now?"
What'd you get yourself
into?
And
you're like, Michele Tafoya. I was like, "Shut up! Quit lying." And then you were like, "No, for real." And then I saw the emails, and I'm like, oh man, he's not lying.
Yeah, I'm not kidding. So yeah, it's a big moment for the show. Hopefully, continue to build, and hopefully we don't have too many more of those fiascos. But hey, if they all work out like this, then whatever. If
you
it's
know
an
what?
hour
Hey,
later,
yeah.
it is what it is. Big announcement for us. We're not going to retread everything we did on the other show. This is perfect time for once, perfect length of a show. Big news for us is we're on Spotify and Stitcher now, which, much to my surprise, we weren't. So that's A. B, yeah, I didn't realize how easy it was to get on there. And C, apparently this is what all the cool kids are listening to is Stitcher and Spotify.
Yeah, I didn't know about Stitcher, but I know Spotify. I listen to Spotify.
So if you guys listen to Spotify, we're on iTunes, we're on SoundCloud, we're, any podcast app you can search podcasts, we're there. But now we're on Stitcher and Spotify. So go out there and check that out. We'll have this show up in the next few. I'm going to try to get it uploaded in the next few minutes. If you've missed any part of it at all, definitely check it out. This was a great interview. I'm going to try to find our closeout music, little production value for once. Man, we've come a long way. I do want to mention this that because our next show is going to be March 17th, St. Patrick's Day, is Selection Sunday. It'll be a Selection Sunday companion show. Robert will be in the house, our new contributor, and then the president of the Notre Dame Fan Club of Columbus, founder, head honcho, whatever you want it to be called, Mark Hissam, he'll be here. And then the next show after that's not till April, and that's the first round of the draft companion. Yeah, we kind of spaced out, so we won't have a show to kind of celebrate a year of you being on the show, for one, and 2 years of East of the Bend is in about 9 days. So, yeah, man, it's been an incredible ride. I just hope we keep building from here. I mean, if you've seen the little tiny soundboard I used for the first show and I'm just talking to myself, essentially, it's incredible to think that in 2 years' time that I got a co-host. We're signed with a local high school football team. We're doing sideline reporting. We're doing highlight reels. We have other schools reaching out to us to cover their events. And Michele Tafoya comes on.
Michele
Tafoya. Yeah. So we've come a long way. Until those two shows, check out Dempsey's, 346 South High Street in Columbus. Dempsey's Food and Spirits, our main sponsor. And we will have this show distributed hopefully very shortly because we gotta go eat. So until that is March 17th, we will have the March Madness Selection Sunday Companion Show. Then again, what is April 24th, first round of the NFL Draft Companion. All four of us will be in the house. So I hope you enjoyed the interview with Michele. I know we did, and we will talk to you later. Go Irish.